1, 2, 3, 98, 99, 100.
Oh, hey, didn't see you there. I was just doing my weights because they're really hard. And today on Salt, we're looking at how God can do things that are really hard. Actually, how he can do things that are impossible. But before I have a look at that, we are going to see if we can remember what happened last week. And I've got a couple of pictures to show us. First up, we have Grace Brittle's drawing. Can you have a guess what we were doing last week yet? Next up, we have David Robinson's drawing. This one moves. Crazy. And Natalie's drawing. Man, this one moves too. Well done, guys. And lastly, if you haven't guessed it yet, Elise Brittle has drawn the whole story for us. Man, thanks for your help, Elise. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Alright, I'm going to hand it over to Liam, the weatherman, and then we're going to have a look at the story today to see how God does the impossible. Alright, over to you, Liam.
Alright, sit. Sit down, apples. Apples, sit. Apples, sit. Sit. No, you're useless. How about shake hands? Shake hands? No, shake hands. Shake hands. I don't even want to shake hands. How about roll over? Roll over. Roll over. Oh, you silly dog. You don't know any tricks. Oh, hey Salt. It's me, Liam, your weatherman. As usual, I'm going to tell you about the weather. So, it's a bit cloudy. So it could rain, or it couldn't rain. But I'm just trying to train my dog today. It's very silly. Over to you, Tamika.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Storytime. This week we're reading a story called God Makes a Way. It is a story about Moses and the Red Sea from Exodus 14 to 15. Moses and God's people escaped out of Egypt and into the wilderness. They didn't know the way, but God knew the way, and he would show them. I will bring you to a new home and a special land, God promised them. I will look after you. I am with you. God sent a big cloud for them to follow, a pillar of smoke stretching up to the sky. It moved in front of them as they walked and shaded them from the blazing heat of the day. And when it was time to rest, it stopped. All through the cold desert nights, it kept them warm, glowing like fire. God led his people through the desert to the edge of a great sea. They were just wondering how to cross it when suddenly they heard a terrible thundering and pounding. It sounded almost like horses' hooves. They shaded their eyes to look back and screamed. It was! Pharaoh and his army were coming to get them. Pharaoh had changed his mind again. Get my slaves back, he screeched and charged out into the desert after them with 600 of his fastest horsemen and every single chariot in Egypt. And here we've got a picture of Pharaoh on his chariot. What were God's people going to do? In front of them was a big sea. It was so big that there was no way around it. But there was no way through it. It was too deep. They didn't have any boats, so they couldn't sail across, and they couldn't swim across because it was too far and they would drown. And they couldn't turn back because Pharaoh was chasing them. They could see the flashing swords now glinting in the baking sun and the dust clouds and chariot after scary chariot surging towards them. So they did the only thing that there was left to do. Panic! We're going to die, they shrieked. Don't be afraid, Moses said. But there's nothing else we can do, they screamed. God knows you can't do anything, Moses said. God will do it for you. Trust him and watch. But there's no way out, they cried. God will make a way, Moses said. Another minute and it would have been over. But then the strangest thing happened. God made the pillar of smoke move. It moved behind his people and hid them from the Egyptians. Then God sent a strong east wind to blow all night long. It blew the water on the big sea. It blew it to the left and it blew it to the right until it blew it into two towering walls of water. And there, right through the middle of the sea, a muddy pathway opened up and God's people walked across on dry land. And we've got a picture of them walking through the middle of the Red Sea. When the Egyptians tried to follow, the walls of water crashed back down on them and swallowed them up. God's people were safe. They danced and laughed and sang and thanked God. When there had been no way out, God had made a way. Many years later, once again, God was going to make a way where there was no way. From the beginning, God's children had been running from him and hiding. God knew that his children could never be happy without him, but they couldn't get back to him by themselves. They were lost. They didn't know their way back, but God knew the way. And one day, he would show them. Oh, I think it's time for Salty News.
Hello, salty viewers. I hope you're ready again for a spectacular show, because I know I am. Let's introduce him. The man, the myth, the legend. I'm sure you've heard the name. It's Moses.
Hey everyone, can't wait to talk to you all today. I've certainly seen a few cool things in my time because of God.
Yeah, cool. Can you tell us about what was going on leading up to this? I'm sure Pharaoh's army wasn't chasing you for no reason.
Well, we were the descendants of Joseph living in Egypt, but a long time had passed since Joseph was around, and we actually were turned into slaves because there were so many of us. It was a really hard life and we were treated really bad. But because God saw us and our pain, he decided to rescue us from the Egyptians.
The Egyptians were a powerful and scary bunch of people, and if I were you guys, I would have thought it impossible to escape. Besides everything else, there was a big old sea stuck in the middle of your path.
Yeah, it was crazy, but we had to trust God and he definitely came through. He made the impossible possible.
Do you think God did these big things like parting the sea as a way to possibly show that the impossible is plausible, as a possible possibility? For God, at least?
Come again?
Do you think God parted the Red Sea and did these big things to show his power?
Oh, okay. Yes, definitely. No one had seen anything like it. It was incredible. So we couldn't help but sing and dance and give him thanks. God did the impossible all by himself.
What a story. God made a way out of no way, and through it all, you got to see his love and his power at the same time. This reminds me a bit of what Jesus did on the cross by making a way for us after we did the wrong thing and separated ourselves from God. Well, thanks, Moses, and thanks, salty viewers, for tuning in again this week. And as always, we'll catch you next time with some more salty news.
Well, how cool is that? God just split the water so that his people could go through and then just make it come back together again. How cool is that God can do the impossible? Alright, well that's it for this week. So, make sure to send in your best drawings of the water split apart and the people walking through. Send them in to me and we'll be able to have them on Virtual Salt next week. Alright, see you guys.